Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Glad you could join us here at U Talk. We listen.
It's a good day for a deep dive.
Yeah. While everyone else is focused on turkey and all the fixings, we thought we'd take a look at something a little different.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our sponsor, by the way,
Oh, right.
the OtisWho Network.
Always appreciate them.
Yeah. So the story we're diving into today is about Sean Diddy Combs.
All right, Diddy?
Yeah, and the latest developments in his legal situation.
Okay.
Specifically, the fact that he was recently denied bail.
Oh, wow.
For the third time?
Third time.
Third time.
That's
not a good sign.
I get that bail isn't always a sure thing, right?
Right.
But this is Diddy we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we're talking about $50 million.
$50 million.
That was on the table, and the judge still said no. What's the message here? What's the court trying to tell us?
Well, when a judge repeatedly denies bail like that, especially with that kind of money involved, it really sends a strong signal.
Yeah.
It suggests they're seriously concerned.
Oh, about
Diddy being a flight risk, or even worse, trying to obstruct justice.
Oh, so it's not just about making sure he shows up for court.
It's bigger than that.
Okay.
It's about protecting the integrity of the whole legal process.
I mean, but $50 million. Wouldn't that be enough to make anyone think twice about skipping town?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But money isn't always the deciding factor.
Okay.
In this case, Judge Subramanian specifically mentioned Diddy's propensity for violence as a reason for the denial.
Propensity for violence.
Yeah, and pointed to some pretty compelling evidence.
So it's not just about the original allegations against him.
Right.
There's more to it.
It's about his alleged actions while this case has been going on.
Wait, what do you mean? What kind of actions?
Well, remember, this is a complex case.
Yeah.
We're talking about charges of coercion, abuse, blackmail, even violence.
Right.
The indictment paints a pretty disturbing picture.
Of Diddy, maybe with associates and employees, potentially trying to silence victims and witnesses.
So the judge is worried this pattern of behavior could continue if he's released.
Exactly.
So it's less about the money and more about preventing potential interference with the case.
Right. The judge cited evidence of Diddy communicating with a grand jury witness and then deleting those texts. He's accused of breaking prison rules to make phone calls.
Wow.
And even allegedly trying to influence potential jurors.
Hold on. Back up for a sec.
Sure.
For those of us who aren't legal experts,
Right.
What exactly is a grand jury?
Good question. A grand jury is basically a group of citizens who review evidence presented by the prosecution to see if there's enough to formally charge someone with a crime.
Okay.
They operate in secret.
Secret? Why secret?
It's to ensure fairness and protect the accused.
Makes sense.
So any attempt to communicate with a grand jury witness or influence them is taken very seriously.
Okay, yeah, I can see why that would be a red flag. But influencing potential jurors, that seems like something out of a movie. How would someone even do that?
Well, it could involve a lot of things, you know.
Like what?
Trying to shape public opinion through the media, or even more direct attempts to contact or intimidate individuals.
Oh, wow.
We don't know the full details of what Diddy's alleged to have done, but the judge clearly believes there's enough evidence to be concerned.
So the judge is seeing a pattern here, right? Yeah. Like, Diddy might use his resources and influence to control the narrative. It's not just about the original accusations, but how he's allegedly acted since being charged.
Right. The judge seems to be saying that given Diddy's power and resources, even strict house arrest might not be enough.
To guarantee the integrity of the trial.
Exactly. And remember, part of ensuring a fair trial is protecting witnesses and potential jurors from outside influence.
Speaking of power and influence, the judge also mentioned Diddy using those things to coerce women. What exactly was that referring to?
This is where things get particularly disturbing. There are allegations surrounding what have been called freak-offs.
Freak-offs?
Yeah. Essentially, Diddy is accused of using his wealth and status to pressure women into participating in drugged, elaborately staged sexual performances that also involved male sex workers.
Okay, this is getting into some heavy territory.
It is. Yeah. And these allegations add another layer of complexity to the case. And they definitely bolster the judge's concerns about Diddy's potential for coercion and control.
Okay, so we've got these very serious allegations. Then on top of that, these alleged attempts to influence the legal process itself.
Right.
It almost makes the $50 million bail seem like small potatoes at this point.
Well, it's important to remember that bail isn't a punishment. It's meant to ensure someone shows up for trial.
Right.
But when there's strong evidence suggesting that someone might not only flee, but also tamper with witnesses or jurors, the stakes get much higher.
I'm starting to see why the judge might be hesitant to release Diddy even with that much money on the line.
It really does highlight the fact that this isn't your average case.
Yeah.
We're talking about someone with a lot of wealth, a lot of influence.
Right.
And the judge seems to be really grappling with how to ensure fairness here.
Yeah. I mean, is it possible that Diddy's fame and fortune make him more of a liability in the eyes of the law?
I think it's definitely a factor. Remember that detail the judge mentioned about Diddy allegedly paying other inmates to use their phone codes?
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that?
Well, I think it really reinforces that pattern of behavior we've been talking about.
Okay.
It suggests that he's used to getting his way, even if it means breaking the rules.
Right.
So in this case, it raises concerns about whether he would respect the conditions of any release.
Even under house arrest.
Exactly.
So it's not just about him potentially fleeing the country.
Right.
It's about him potentially trying to control things from the outside.
Exactly. If he's willing to break prison rules to make calls
Right.
and allegedly influence potential jurors,
Yeah.
what's to stop him from doing the same thing? Or worse, from his own home?
This is painting a very different picture of Diddy than what most people might see, in the media or whatever.
Definitely.
Makes you wonder what the impact of all this is going to be on his reputation, his career.
It's a PR nightmare, for sure.
Yeah.
And it raises questions about how we, as a society, hold powerful people accountable. Can someone with Diddy's resources and influence really face justice in the same way as someone without those advantages?
That's a really tough question. On the one hand, everybody deserves a fair trial.
Right.
Regardless of their wealth or status. But on the other hand, how do you level the playing field when someone has the means to potentially manipulate the system?
That's the challenge facing the court in this case. And it's a challenge that I think is becoming more and more relevant as we navigate all the complexities of wealth and power and justice in the digital age.
Yeah, it's like we're seeing this clash between celebrity culture and the legal system playing out in real time.
Think about how social media has changed things.
Yeah.
It's amplified the ability to shape public opinion and potentially influence witnesses.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
This case is playing out under a microscope.
Yeah.
Every detail is being dissected and debated online.
Right.
It's hard to imagine that doesn't have some impact on the legal proceedings.
It absolutely does. It raises ethical questions about the role of media and public opinion in trials.
Right.
How do you ensure a fair and impartial process when the court of public opinion is already making its judgment?
It's such a delicate balance.
Yeah.
We want transparency and accountability, but we also need to protect the integrity of the legal system.
And this case is a perfect example of those two principles being put to the test. Yeah. It reminds us that the pursuit of justice, it's complex, it's messy, especially when you're dealing with individuals who have the means and the motivation to potentially influence the outcome.
It really makes you think about how these issues go way beyond this one case.
Yeah.
We're seeing these same dynamics in politics, in business, anywhere where power and influence are at stake.
You're absolutely right. The Diddy case is like a microcosm of a much bigger conversation about how we deal with power dynamics.
Yeah.
And ensure fairness in a world where access to resources and the ability to control information can really have a huge impact on the outcome.
It's a conversation we definitely need to be having.
Yeah.
And I think this deep dive has opened that up for our listeners.
I hope so. Because at the end of the day, the pursuit of justice is something that affects all of us.
It makes you wonder what the long-term implications of this case might be.
Yeah.
Will it set a precedent for how courts handle these kinds of situations?
It's definitely possible. Legal experts are watching the judge's decisions closely.
Yep.
And it could have a ripple effect on future cases involving high-profile individuals.
And it's not just about legal precedents. This case could actually shift public perception about wealth, power, and accountability.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that no one, no matter how rich or famous, is above the law. But it also makes you wonder if the law, as it is now, is really equipped to deal with people who can use their wealth and influence to manipulate the system.
It's a sobering thought. What message does this send to victims, especially those who might be hesitant to come forward against powerful people?
That's a crucial question. If this case is seen as an example of wealth and influence being used to avoid accountability, it could discourage victims from speaking out.
And that could really undermine public trust in the justice system. Like, do we actually believe that it can protect the vulnerable and hold the powerful accountable?
Exactly. That's why the outcome of this case and how it's handled by the courts has implications that go way beyond Diddy himself.
It's a lot to take in. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the bail denials to the bigger issues of power and influence and justice in the digital age.
It is a lot, and it's a story that I think it's going to keep unfolding.
Yeah, and we started this deep dive talking about bail.
Right.
But I think we've gotten into some much bigger questions now.
We have. This case, with all its twists and turns, really forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about wealth, influence, and how they operate, sometimes even within the legal system.
It makes you wonder, how do we ensure a system where justice is truly blind, where everyone has a fair shot regardless of their status or their resources?
That's the million-dollar question. And unfortunately, I don't think there are any easy answers.
Right.
But this case really highlights the importance of transparency, accountability, and a legal system that's constantly adapting to these new challenges.
Right. We've talked a lot about how Diddy has allegedly tried to control the narrative.
Right.
But it's interesting to think about how we, as consumers of information, navigate this too.
Yeah.
I mean, we are bombarded with news and opinions and social media commentary.
Did a lot.
How do we form our own judgments amidst all that noise?
That's such a good point. We can't just passively take in information. We have to be critical thinkers, question our sources, consider different perspectives, and recognize that there's often more to the story than what we see at first glance.
It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility here to hold powerful people accountable and to demand a justice system that's fair for everyone.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that justice isn't a one-and-done deal.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. It requires constant vigilance and a commitment to fairness and equality.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given us a lot to think about.
It has.
Far more than just the turkey and stuffing on our plates today.
I think it's safe to say that this story isn't over yet.
Right.
And there will be more to come. But I hope this conversation has given our listeners some food for thought, some insights to help them navigate these really complicated issues.
Thanks for joining us on this Thanksgiving deep dive.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We appreciate you spending part of your day with us. Here at UTalk, we listen.
Yes, thank you.
And as always, keep those brains engaged and keep asking those tough questions.